Disclaimer, I don't own any of the pieces of art that I'm showing or the copyrights to the characters shown in them. And I'm also not an expert on fan stuff, but who is? Hello, Marco again, and in this week's video I'm going to talk about fan comics. Why are fan comics amazing, you might ask? Fan comics are amazing because they are made by a dedicated fan who made them in his own time and went into a different direction than the original franchise makers could ever thought of. And sometimes they can put the original story to shame. There are some epic fan comics online. Most of them aren't finished and never will be finished, but are still worth reading. If you want a reason why fan comics are sometimes better than the original franchise, just look at Pokemon Mystery Dungeon fan comics. There are tons of examples to give about that franchise. These Pokemon Mystery Dungeon comics tell a way better story than the games or anime ever could, because, these are all my personal opinions, but don't put too much weight behind them, they give the Pokemon actual names instead of type names. It's barely possible in the anime, which I haven't watched in a very long time, but the reason for that shall be explained in another video. And you wouldn't call your dog dog, right? They also give them different appearances, they are barely distinguishable in the anime, and also better personalities. And there are much more examples I can name, but it's best to see for yourself. Now, some recommendations for good fan comics. 1. Pokemon Victory Fire. It's a good fan comic with all the stuff that I mentioned earlier, and also shows some characters from the first Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, and it flawlessly introduces newer Pokemon into the story. 2. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Gaiden. It's a really good Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan comic. It really looks like a manga, and it has a beautiful story about the turtles splitting up after they killed their master Splinter. 3. Ghosts of the Future. A beautiful Sonic comic with a beautiful art style, a good use of Silver the Hedgehog and other Sonic side characters and original characters OCs, and a good story about Sonic's world in the future. These were just some examples and recommendations for fan comics, but fan comics don't have to be long and complex. There are also short fan comics, mostly one page or one picture. You can debate if that's a comic or not, and are more in comedic tone. These short fan comics can be really good. Sorry for pointing again at a Pokemon comic, but this guy's Esper and Family series, it's not the name of the comic, but I call it that, is really hilarious. These comics have always two panels. In the first panel, Esper and his or her parents, I don't know Esper's gender, are doing something a normal family does, like doing groceries or watching a movie in the theater. In the second panel, the mother does something horrible to her husband and son or daughter. There are many short fan comics on the internet, but not all short comics have to be funny. They can also be about different things, like this MLP fan comic, which you can fully read if you click the link in the description. It's a really sad, and it's about growing up and the things you leave behind while growing up. This is a good example of a sad comic, and if you don't feel sad after reading this, then you are not a human being. But there are more kinds of fan comics online, and I wish you luck finding them. Fan comics can also be a really good free substitute for people who live really far away from comic book stores or find comics way too pricey. Still, I recommend that you do some research on the franchise on which the comic is based, so that you can understand the fan comic and so that you can differentiate between the real franchise characters and OCs. This was my explanation of fan comics and why they are sometimes better than the real story of that franchise. This was my 4th video. I won't upload a video next week because I go on vacation. But I hope you liked this video, and please like and subscribe and share this video.